All right. So I went back to look at some of my older ideas here, and I'm probably just gonna read off a couple of them. And if I do go into one hard, then we'll just do another talk. But so I'm gonna start with this one because I this was the first one that I read and I thought it was funny. So the topic here is I'm addicted to thinking. I think. And so I never did this talk, I guess. I mean, maybe I did, I don't know. And I just never moved it. But pretty much that's all I wrote. And the reason why I put this is because I'm always thinking all the time and I find it enjoyable. And I really don't know how to, not do it. Although I think I've gotten better at that, right? Because I'm at a point now where I'm not constantly thinking about, oh, what's the next big idea that's going to churn up in my brain, right? I like to learn and expose myself to information, but I'm no longer like, I'm not constantly actively pursuing ideas. It's more that the ideas find me. And then when they do, I write them down and eventually I talk about them or I think about them some more. Like I have a thought and I'm like, huh, I wonder why, which I actually never got to the bottom of this, but I was in my car and I was like, dude, I'm shredded. Why? Because honestly, I don't even know why I like thought that slash potentially said that. Right. But I said that I was like shredded. Like, what does that even mean? Like it means that I've got a lot, like massive muscles. Like I've got big muscles, right? But like, where did that come from? So then I was like, okay, well, shredded probably came from ripped. Like you're not just ripped, right? Because ripped also means that you've got muscles, right? So you were ripped, but you're not just ripped, you're shredded. Like you're absolutely like shredded because like, so you're way more muscular than ripped. And then, okay, well, where did ripped come from? Because that's also something. And I was thinking rippling muscles is what I was thinking. And someone, dude, you have rippling muscles. Dude, I'm ripped, right? And I don't know if this is it at all, right? Because like I said, I didn't look it up to get to the bottom of this. But then I was like, okay, well, what does rippling muscles mean? So let's look it up actually while we're, while we're here. Rippling muscles. Let's see. I mean, and again, I could be totally off on this, but this is the kind of stuff that, like this random popped into my brain, and so I just kind of started thinking about it, right? And so, all right, from what I'm finding here, rippling muscles is not the origin, but I don't know. Like it seems it kind of seems like it jumps. It sounds like it. I like. I don't know. I mean. It would require way too much research to matter. But I was just kind of thinking about that. I was kind of curious if like I actually got to the source of where it came from, and maybe I'm not wrong, and maybe I'm right on the money. But like from this description, it's not what it's saying. But I don't really know if I think that that's like what it's giving me here. I don't like it. That doesn't mean it's not true, but I'm just I don't know. It just sounds like a big leap to me. So maybe it's the case, but it just sounds like a big jump. So I we're gonna move on. Anyway, so I think I'm addicted to thinking. This was from almost 3 years ago now. And so I do constantly try and keep my brain working. I will say that I'm addicted to learning probably more than thinking now. And really not even necessarily learning, but absorbing. Like I'm not a I listen to a lot of content to understand the general principles and get background information and surface level stuff, but I don't necessarily try and learn the nitty gritty details of everything that I come across. So I wouldn't say I'm like actively pursuing learning, nor am I actively pursuing thinking. It's more that I'm just actively pursuing information. And so maybe I'm addicted to information, which is probably a very common thing in the nowadays, now that I'm thinking about it, right? And I mean, this right here is such a good example of me being, now that I realize, I'm like, I'm like, I'm dissecting my own dissection here. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, and this is actually why I initially wrote this, because I do things like this where I'm dissecting my own dissection of a thought, right? I'm in multiple layers deep. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about with that one. So we're gonna move on. And send that one to, we did that now, so we don't forget. And so, the world really is just so beautiful and impressive and crazy that it doesn't seem real. Just lying down and looking at the leaves of a tree shake and sway in the wind is enough to make you question how we got so lucky. A tree really is just such a crazy thing when you think about it, and yet they are here. It's amazing. So, this was based off of the impetus of me lying under a tree or something along those lines. But it's not just trees that this is so crazy about, right? So what I'm saying here is that I've said this in multiple talks, but if you just take a minute to truly look at the world around you, you start to realize just how crazy it is that it even is in the first place. And the things around you that we just take for granted, like, oh, there's another tree. Like the concept of a tree is just so bizarre. Like, if you really think about it, it's just this thing that like takes in air and then creates a wood and like grows over time, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And some of them produce fruit that we can eat, and like it's like just like these things that are just it's so weird, and it's so crazy, and it's so beautiful, and it's just our everyday. We don't even think about it. It doesn't even matter. And it's just so, like, when you truly look at everything, it's hard to believe that it's real, right? It's hard to believe that any of this actually can be, right? Because it's like, how is this even possible? Like, this is so crazy. This is so amazing. And yet, like, it's just here, you know? Like, yesterday, I was eating some tacos, and I'm just sitting there, and I like realized like it's all quiet around me. I'm the only person in my apartment, right? So it's just me in my apartment, and I'm just sitting there in the quiet, alone, eating my taco, and I'm like, just some dude eating a taco right now. Like, what an interesting moment in time, right? Like just some dude eating a taco. Like if I wasn't me, you know, like if this was like a TV show, like you're just like clicking through the channels, right? And it's just an empty room. Well, it's not empty. There's a bunch of stuff in here, but just a room with a dude eating a taco, not even looking at you, just like off in the background, he's just eating a taco, right? Like it's like what a bizarre moment in time to like pop in on, right? And then and like every single moment is like that. Like, it's all just so incredible. And I have an uncountable amount of moments in my lifetime, right, that I've already lived. And then all of the moments of every other person that's lived during my life too, you could also go and look at. And there's so many absolutely crazy moments, but there's also just some that are just so absurdly mundane that there's a sense of beauty to it in itself. And I don't know, it's just the fact that anything even is just amazing. And I really think that people need to take a moment to realize that and think about it a bit, because it truly is just so crazy. And you know, as one who has seen trees blow in the breeze or leaves blow in the breeze, I highly recommend doing that sometime. You know, observing like the tree sway and just be like, "Whoa." Okay, moving on to the next one. The next one is simplicity and duality are two things I really enjoy and value. And so pretty much these are like two of like the core principles of just I would say probably the Tao, but also just life in general. And so these are two things that, like, you know, the simplicity of things. I think the way I meant this was just in a more broad aspect. You know, just the simplicity of some things, right? As I said, like there are some moments that are just so mundane. It's absurd how mundane they are. It's just such a simple actions. It's a simple moment in time. There's nothing special about it, but there's something about that that is just absolutely priceless. And so the simplicity of things is something that I really enjoy observing and realizing, and is something that I value. You know, having simplicity in my life is something that I value. And then the other thing is duality, because in the broad scope of things, there is, you know, there's light and dark, but realistically, dark is just the lack of light, right? So it's all one, right? There's, if it's dark, it's because there's no light, but if it's light, it's because there's no dark. And that duality is just, it's part of one thing, but we have broken it up into parts, right? And so, a concept is probably actually a talk, but basically, like a knife is both a tool for survival. It will keep you alive in a survival situation, but it is also a tool of death. And so, in one hand, a knife can be seen as life and the I guess, creation of life, right? Because it allows you to create and like, it allows you to manipulate the world in a way that allows you to survive and live. And so you can look at it as a symbol of life. But you can easily also look at it as a symbol of death, because typically with a knife, to keep you alive, you must, you know, kill or eat something else, right? And so on one hand, it is what has kept you alive. And say you're getting attacked, you know, something's attacking you, you use your knife to kill it so it can't kill you. And so it is this duality, this dichotomy, where it is both the thing that gives you life, but also is a thing that causes death. And so there's a lot of things like this that are this duality where it's seemingly contradictory. It doesn't feel like it should be able to be both, but it is both. And this kind of realizing the duality of things, realizing the nature of this world is really not, you know, one or the other, but it's a mixture of both, is really what is. So I find that very beautiful, and is kind of an essence of what the world is. And this, again, like I said, is a very big principle in the Tao, is that the Tao is not one or the other. It is both. It is everything. It's all things, right? So it's pretty much take this concept to the extreme, right? To say, really the duality there is everything and nothing, right? Or everything, or, you know, nothing and something, or everything and something, right? So this is everything else, and then this is the singular thing, right? So that's really what the dichotomy is there. But the thing is that if this is everything else, it really encompasses the single thing. So the single thing is not really separate. It's part of this everything else. Whereas we don't see it that way. We see ourselves as the self, and everything else is around us rather than we are, within everything else. It's really quite an absurd mentality to have, because if everything else is around us, that automatically means that we are a part of and within everything else, right? So like, to think that you are separate from everything around you is really just such a bizarre and absurd and quite frankly deranged way of thinking, but that is the common person. So it's really quite interesting to see ourselves that way and to see the world that way. But that's what we have, and that probably gets into another talk that I want to do about the knowledge of good and evil. That's another duality. The knowledge of good and evil is seen as this point where we fell from, God kicked us out and said, you what, get out of here, right? And the thing is the concept of good and evil didn't exist to us until we ate from the tree of knowledge. And realistically, did we actually eat a fruit? No, this is most likely our evolution from, being in, I would say, not necessarily unconscious, but unaware, right? Unaware animal into the quote unquote aware human. We're still, nothing's really changed. The truth is that the transition from unaware animal to aware human is really not a big jump. There's not a big transition there, but we see it. Because we're aware of ourselves, it is a big jump. It is a big transition to us. And we have kind of gone crazy with the realization of the self. And that is, I guess we're just going to do that talk in this one because I'm kind of getting into it. But that is the realization of the self created what is considered the ego. And the ego has pretty much gone rampant and said, I'm me. I need to look out for me, or I need to protect me. That is Satan. That is the devil. That idea, that concept, that is what the devil is, right? We've embodied the devil into something outside of ourselves because of just how absurd and deranged our mind is. We go, oh no, but the devil's not me. That's something else is causing that on me. I'm not making these choices. Something's making me make these choices. It's not my fault, right? Because we have awareness of the self, but not enough awareness to realize that the self is not just the self. If that made sense. But so basically, what I'm trying to say is that we never got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. We've always been here. We just forgot where we were. We're still in the Garden of Eden. We're still in paradise. We just forgot what paradise looks like because we're so focused on, we're so, our mind got so screwed up going from unaware to self-aware. We got so lost in that transition because it's a big jump from the individual point of view. It's a massive leap from the individual point of view to go from being part of the collective unaware being to being aware of the self. It's a big leap. It's a big change. And we kind of just went mad with power because we went, wait a minute, everything's for me. It's all about me. I'm me. I got to keep me alive. I got to keep me going. So whatever it takes to do that, I'm going to do. And we've slowly evolved over time into what we are now. And it's so perverted. It's so wrong. It's just not the way of the world. And, we were never kicked out of the Garden of Eden. We kicked ourselves out, but we didn't even really do that. We're just blind. We can't see where we are. We don't we got so like our brain got like our mind got so jostled from the transition that we were like we I don't even like we got almost dementia. We're like wait where are we? I don't recognize this place. This is not where I was because the way the world looked when you were unaware of what you were looking at and what you were, right? The change in perspective between being aware of who you are and looking at the world and being unaware of who you are and looking at the world, it seems like two completely different places. But we never went anywhere. We've always been in paradise, in heaven. We've just made it into progressively greater and greater hell. You know, so we are so concerned with like we're just so concerned with ourselves that we've forgotten, you know, like we're so concerned with ourselves we never stop to wonder why we care. You know, like why do you care if you live? Like really, like why do you care if you live? Like why do you need to live a long life? Why do you like? And you know, you say, oh, because you know I want to spend time with my family. But like why? Like realistically, why? Like why does any of it matter? Right? Why does any of it matter? In the grand scheme of things, if you die and that's the end, right? Like why does any of it matter? Right? And so we never thought, like we're so focused on, you know, living, we never thought to ask why it is that we're doing it, right? And we've really kind of just gotten so lost, right? And that kind of is like thinking about things that we do, and it's like you do these things you don't even think about it. Like people sneeze, and I think I'm noticing that it's less and less common. Maybe it's just because I was raised in like a Christian household. I went to a Christian school when I was young, and so maybe I noticed it more because you know it's kind of like more of a Christian thing. But you know, you sneeze and people say "bless you," right? How many people actually know why they even say that, right? And to anyone that's like, yeah, why do we say that? It's because people thought you might be possessed or something by like an evil spirit or a demon or something when you sneezed. Because you know, typically you got sick and you died if you were sneezing, and so they related that to being, you know, possessed or something like that and dying. And so people would say, "Oh, bless you," right? You know, basically saying to try and you know expel this demon or whatever, right? And or you know evil spirit so that you don't get sick and die, basically, right? And so I guess people just decided that it was working because you don't only sneeze when you're sick. You know, you sneeze sometimes when your nose gets like irritated or whatever, right? So people would say, "Oh, bless you," and then they wouldn't actually get sick and die, and they would go like, "It works," right? Maybe that's how that happened. I don't know, right? But basically, we say "bless you" now, but we all know that the reason, like, you're not, it's not an evil spirit that's making you sneeze, and you're not always sick when you sneeze. Like, we know that now. So when people sneeze and you say, "Oh, bless you," you know, it's like, it's just like a thing you do, and it's a polite thing. And so some people are like, "Oh, like, no one said bless you to me." Like, you know, that's like, it's seen as like a polite thing to do now. But like, it's completely meaningless. It's completely pointless, realistically. But it's just a formality that is in the culture. We do it just out of habit, and we don't think about why we do it. We just do it. And that's kind of part of what I'm trying to say here. You know, we don't think about why we're living or what we're living in. We just think about the fact that we got to keep doing it because that's what we do. That's what we do. We live. We got to keep living. You know, gotta keep the self alive. You know, and so there's that. I think there was more I wanted to say with that. There's like another talk that I could have potentially gone into, but I don't know if I hit on it, and it kind of has escaped me now. But this one's getting long, so I'm gonna Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to go double check that other talk that I just touched on to make sure that I said what I wanted to say with that now that I did it. When we ate from the tree of knowledge, we were kicked out to prevent us from eating from the tree of life. Okay, no, that's a separate one. Hold on. The Garden of Eden is earth. The tree of knowledge was us becoming self-aware. We are not kicked out. We were not kicked out of the garden by God. We made ourselves blind to it. We realized our actions and called them evil and punished ourselves. The devil is you. It is your mind, but so is God. You are not damned to hell. You are forgiven when you forgive yourself. So, that's part of the talk that I want to say there, but I might get the other one in while we're at it. And I feel like I've pretty much covered most of that in there. You decide your fate for yourself, pretty much. And so I'm going to say, when we ate from the tree of knowledge, we were kicked out to prevent us from eating from the tree of life. But we could eat from all trees except the tree of knowledge before that, right? So the rule was every tree except for the tree of knowledge, not the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, right? So what I'm saying here is that if we could eat from every tree, not we, but like Adam and Eve in this story could eat from every tree except for the tree of knowledge, right? Then one could assume that they already have eaten from the tree of life. So it says, we were kicked out of the we were kicked out to prevent us from eating from the tree of life, but we could eat from all trees except the tree of knowledge. This means that we already ate from the tree of life. We are already eternal, and the tree of knowledge gave us the capacity for wisdom, but removed all that we previously knew. We will surely die from eating the tree of knowledge because we no longer know what death is, right? So we've already eaten from the tree of life. So or at least in theory, right? In theory, we've already eaten from the tree of life. And so by that logic, that means that we can't die. However, we also ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we will surely die. We will surely die because eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we see life as good and death as evil. However, we've already eaten from the tree of life. And so we will surely die because we perceive death as bad and the end. However, death is not the end. Death is not actually death. It's just an action. It's like you go to sleep every night. Is that the end? It's the end of the day, but it's not the end of your life, right? And so most likely death is the same thing. We are eternal, and therefore when we die, it is not us dying and being done forever, but really more, right? It's not that you are dying, it's that you're just going to sleep and then you wake back up and it's a new life and you continue to live on because we are eternal and we've always been that way, but we just didn't realize, right? And so this kind of gets into that we are not our bodies, we are our consciousness, and our consciousness is probably not our own, but more of a collective thing, a collective whole. We are consciousness evolving and being aware of itself evolving. And so, as I said, we went from this transition of being unaware, right, to being aware of the self. And now that we're aware of the self, we now need to become aware of both the self and the whole and realize that they are one and the same. And that is the next jump in consciousness, right? And I can see the beginnings of this to take place. But naturally, we're also in some dark times because there's just a lot, we're reaching the critical point of transition here, and so it's really interesting. It's really interesting to think about life from this perspective, and to think about the existence of, life on the planet and humans as a whole as, consciousness itself evolving to be more conscious of itself is just, and like the consciousness of the universe is developing itself through us is just so interesting and so bizarre. And, but like, it's like, why do you exist? You exist to learn and grow and live and experience the world, because through experience you learn, and as you learn you understand, and as you understand you know things, and you evolve and you grow and you become better for it, right? And so we go through these constant cycles of learning and growing and understanding more and more and more, and the more people that do this, the faster this process goes, and the faster the process goes, the more evolved we become, right? And so it's just a really, really interesting thing. And so, I think that is a much better outlook on the world. And I feel like this talk has really gotten all over the place at this point now. But what I think is some of the most important things to take away from this is that the world you live in is heaven if you want it to be, or it is hell if you want it to be. The person or the thing that makes that decision is you. It doesn't matter how bad your life is. If you decide it is bad, it is bad. If you decide it is good, it is good. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say, I'm getting stabbed. Obviously that is bad. But the reality is that it, as absurd as this sounds and as deranged as this sounds, it is all about your perspective. If you decide it is a bad thing to get stabbed and die, then it is a bad thing to get stabbed and die. That is the power of the knowledge of good and evil. However, having the knowledge of good and evil, right, allows you to both see both sides, but understand that they are both sides of one thing, right? It's not the knowledge of good, right? It's not the knowledge of evil. It's the knowledge of good and evil. That is the most important thing to understand here is that we are choosing how to interpret everything. And therefore we choose how our life unfolds and what everything means to us, and what our place in the world is and what our purpose is, and just how we see everything. Everything is decided by you in your mind. Everything else external doesn't really matter, because whatever happens to you, no matter what it is only good or bad if you decide it is. If you decide to make no, assumptions, then what are you stressing about? What are you fearing? What is there to be concerned with, right? Because if it's not good or bad, it's just there, then it's just a thing. It's just happening. You don't have a reaction to it. It doesn't matter, right? And I don't know. I feel like I'm all over the place with this one. It is important to understand your perspective is what causes your own suffering, and your actions proliferate it, right? And so Whatever makes you unhappy, you can solve it. You can fix it. You just have to, do it. And, you could solve it, or you could just decide that it doesn't bother you anymore. And you can, ignore it. Both are valid and viable options. How you go about dealing with the situation is entirely up to you. And that's just the world. I don't know. That's what's going on. Like, I don't know. Everyone's making decisions about how they see the world all the time, every day. So, I don't know. Maybe that's something also important to think about. You're not the only one thinking, and you're not the only one suffering, and you're not the only one having a good time. But that doesn't mean everyone is sharing the same experience you are, because it's a choice. And you have the freedom to choose. So, I guess choose wisely. So, yeah. Peace out.